Good evening. According to World Health Organization, annually, an estimated 703,000 people take their lives around the world. For every suicide case, there are likely 20 other people making a suicide attempt, and many more have serious suicidal thoughts. In Kenya, the suicide cases are on the rise, both among the young and the old. Last week, unfortunately, two high school students from different schools allegedly died by suicide. What causes both young and old people to contemplate suicide or die by suicide? What needs to be done to reduce these cases? What role does each and every one of us have to help people with mental health issues? Joining us tonight on Health Check is Dr. Akoth Munda to talk about suicide prevention. You can start sending in your questions and comments regarding mental health issues on 22232. You can also get us live on Facebook and YouTube. Our handle is at Hope TV Kenya. You can also drop there your question or comment. Good evening. My name is Grace Mutiso and welcome to Health Check on Hope TV. I hope you had a great week and I'm glad that you're able to join us tonight as we discuss this very important topic about suicide prevention. Allow me to introduce my guest, Dr. Akoth Munda. Good evening, Dr.
Good evening, Grace.
You've been well?
I've been well, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
A very important topic we want to discuss tonight as we count down towards World Suicide Prevention Day. I believe it will be this weekend.
Yeah, on the 10th.
Yeah, let's just set the stage by helping us define what is termed as suicide.
Now, suicide is when somebody takes their life, there's death, and the death has been caused by the individual voluntarily. So intentionally, somebody takes their life. Yeah, so that is what we call suicide. Yeah.
So the key word there is intentionally.
Yes.
They have done it intentionally.
Yes, voluntarily and intentionally.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are suicidal thoughts or feelings?
Suicidal thoughts are those abstract thoughts that are in your head, in your mind. You keep thinking about taking your life. You keep thinking that you want to die. You keep thinking that maybe you don't even want to live. And it may even progress a little bit further to you making plans on how you want to go about it. Yes.
Such a serious thing.
Very serious.
And then that drives me to ask, so what causes one to have those thoughts or feelings?
There are so many causes. There are quite a number of causes, and for each individual it's different. Yeah, so we cannot even generalize. And what might make one person think of taking their own life may not make the next person to do the same. So the circumstances, the situation, the factors are quite different. But we can categorize them into different causes. We have genetic causes. At the top of the list is mental illness.
Help us break down what that is.
Mental illness, mental illness, we have so many mental illnesses, okay? Psychologists and psychiatrists have a book that defines what mental illness. Mental illness is where somebody is affected in their emotions, that is how they feel, how they think, and how they behave. Yes. So they don't feel the same way. They don't feel normal. They don't behave the way someone who doesn't have mental illness behaves. And it also affects how they go about their daily duties. So sometimes they're not even able to perform their duties. They're not able to meet their obligation. And there are many types of mental illness, the many categories. We have, maybe the common ones are mental illnesses like depression, anxiety. Those are the common ones that we keep hearing about.
Yes.
Another one that maybe people are more familiar with or have heard about is bipolar. There's also schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is what we see. It also presents itself in many forms. There are people who we see walking on the streets, who don't, maybe they don't have clothes or they don't wear clothes, some talk to themselves. So there are many forms. It presents itself in many forms. Then we even have, other mental personality disorders.
Oh, really?
Yes, we have personality disorders. The most common personality disorder that is highly associated with suicidal ideation or suicidal feelings is what we call borderline personality disorder.
What is that? Break it down.
This is where people are not able to regulate their emotions well. Okay? They're not able to regulate, they have a problem regulating their emotions. So they can't retain relationships, they struggle with their relationships, they struggle even with their functionality. And of course, there are many symptoms that we look out for before we can even diagnose somebody with borderline personality disorder. So they waver in between, but the core symptom in borderline personality disorder is that the fact that they cannot regulate their emotions well. Yes.
So, for example, what would this person be doing?
The person who has borderline personality disorder,
yes,
they have a lot of instability in their relationships. They have very intense emotions. Okay, so when you're looking at an emotion like anger,
yes,
theirs is extreme. Then when they become sad, it's on the extreme. So very low moods. And then they have also issues with their self-image. They don't look at themselves positively. Whatever they do, they keep criticizing themselves. And then they also struggle with impulsive behaviors. So they just, make decisions. They're quite impulsive. They're also very likely to self-harm because they do not, they're quite self-criticizing. Yeah. So they're not comfortable. They do not see themselves as worthy. Yeah. So they do a lot of self-harm.
Yeah.
And they may also, they're also quite prone to using and abusing substances. So those are just some of the characteristics that we see in someone with borderline personality disorders.
Okay.
Yes.
So this kind of a person, even if you tell them you've really done well, they don't take it well.
They may not take it well. Oh. They may not believe it. Yes, because they are full of self-criticism.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you talked about mental symptoms. You also mentioned genetic.
Yeah, I also talked about genetics. There's some disorders that are carried forward from the parents, from the genetic makeup of the parents. For example, if your parents had a mental disorder like schizophrenia, you are likely, there's a chance, it's not 100% that you're going to have it. You're likely to also have schizophrenia or your children. And even bipolar, a lot of these disorders, if your parents had it, so you see that already makes you vulnerable. Yes, there are even, I don't know, maybe you've heard that this particular family are struggling with alcohol use.
Yes,
there are factors that can be traced back to the family. So there's a genetic component. Of course, there's a combination between genetics and the environment. Yeah, so there could be the genetic cause, there could be the psychological cause, which is the mental disorders, and then there could also be environmental factors. The environment that somebody is in can also make somebody develop suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation. Because we are talking about the possible causes of suicidal ideation. So I said at the top of the list was mental health problems, which I've mentioned some of them.
Yes.
And then there could also be other things like I've talked about the environment. In your environment, what's going on in your environment? Things like bullying, things like discrimination, racism, ethnicity, negative ethnicity.
Yeah.
Those kind of things can push somebody to the corner until, depending on how they're affecting this person, they can push somebody to the corner until they feel like they don't want to live anymore.
It's something like, in the generation you're living in, I know, Dr. Akoth, maybe you've had that toxic work environment.
Exactly.
Can that lead to
that can actually push somebody to a corner? Because I would like us to understand that at the core of suicidality or suicidal ideation or suicidal feelings is hopelessness.
That's the underlying
Yes,
thing.
hopelessness. Because this person looks at themselves and they see their problem like there's nothing else that can be done. So the only way to solve their problem is to, get out of this world, you see.
Yes.
So they feel hopeless, they feel helpless, and they don't see any solution or any reprieve in the future. Because, hope keeps us alive.
Yes.
When we know that tomorrow there may be a chance that things will get better, then we have a reason to live.
True.
But when we lose hope, then we just sit there and say, what's the point? Okay. So whatever gets somebody to a point of hopelessness, that is something that can push somebody to develop suicidal ideation or suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
And can eventually push this person to go ahead and take their own life. Okay. So when we are talking about the environment, we want to look at what is going on in this person's environment.
Yes.
So then we could also be looking at things like abuse, different forms of abuse. We could be talking about physical abuse, we could be talking about sexual abuse, we could be talking about emotional abuse. Again, how does that person feel about the abuse?
Yes.
Because not everyone that is abused gets to take their life. It depends on how this person is perceiving and how they feel and how it makes them feel.
Yes.
So the abuse can also be another cause of developing suicidal feelings. Trauma. Somebody may be exposed to a very traumatic incident.
Yes.
And they feel like it's hopeless to go on. It's overwhelming. So that can also lead somebody to develop a suicidal ideation. Losses, different forms of losses.
Yes.
You can lose your job. You can lose your business. You can lose a loved one. You can lose a relationship. Divorce, that's also a loss on its own because you're breaking up a whole family. So those can also push somebody to the corner where they feel like, what's the point?
Yes.
Yeah. Money problems, housing problems, homelessness. If you've reached a point where you don't have money, you don't have a job, you're on the streets. That can get you to a point, you can't take care of your family. That can get you to a point where you feel, what's the point of living? There's no point of living. Being in prison, being incarcerated can also get somebody to a point of hopelessness. Feeling inadequate, feeling like a failure. Yeah. Substance use and abuse can change how we perceive the world, how we perceive our environment, such that we get to a point where we don't see the need of living because it ruins our lives.
Yeah.
It can make us lose our jobs, it can make us lose our health, it can make us lose our relationships, it can make us lose our wealth, our whatever else we had made. So it can get us to that point of hopelessness. Even childbirth.
Yes. Oh, as simple as it may sound.
Yes. Childbirth, there's what we call postnatal depression.
Yeah.
If not managed, there are women who have taken their life because it's overwhelming. And they didn't probably get, it was not managed, it went too far. They didn't get the support they needed. So it is possible, it's a possible cause. I'm not saying that it will always cause that, but it's a possible cause. Another area that right now our young people are struggling with that could cause them to develop suicidal ideation or suicidal feelings is when they are confused about their gender identity. That's another area, I'm seeing that a lot in my practice right now. Yeah, where the young people are confused about their gender, their gender identity. That can lead somebody to a point of hopelessness. Cultural pressure. So, things like forced marriage, things like forced FGM,
Yes.
So there are quite a number of factors. At the core of it is whatever you're going through how is it making you feel? If it gets you to a point where you feel there's no way out, it can cause suicidal feelings or suicidal ideation that pushes you finally to go to the extent of taking your own life.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it sounds so simple, but yet so serious if not carefully looked into, can lead to death.
Yes.
And my viewer, if you're watching and you know what Dr. Akoth is talking about, you're really identifying with it, please drop us that question that you have on 22232. That is 22232. That's the platform where you can send in your SMS or to your question, or you know somebody who could be experiencing these symptoms that Daktari is talking about. 22232 is the SMS line. You can also interact with us. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. The handle is at Hop TV Kenya. Go on the comment section, drop there your question or comments. We'll be sampling them before we wrap up the program. And ensure you share this content with somebody you know who really needs to hear about this. Our discussion today is about suicide prevention, and I'm hosting Dr. Preskila Munda, our guest today. And you know, Daktari, you stopped at a point where you mentioned teenagers. And sad, you see in the introduction, unfortunately, you know, two young people lost their lives, you know, through suicide. And the numbers keep rising in Kenya. You know, what's happening in the lives of our young people?
It's unfortunate. You're talking about the two, and I was in the village this weekend, and I was being told of another young man who, you know, because he did not get what he wanted, he took his own life. So there are so many unreported cases. These are probably the ones that are reported that we get to hear of. Because I'm pretty sure that one probably did not reach. Maybe they just, you know, took care. It probably did not reach into the statistics. So the causes that I've talked about, if you look at them, these young people are reaching a point of hopelessness. And that's why they feel like there is nothing else that can be done. So there are so many reasons, there are so many points of concern. Maybe we can be asking why. Could it be that our young people don't know how to handle their problems, how to argue out their cases, that is leading them to look at suicide as a solution? So maybe what we need to think about is what is at the core, what is making our young people imagine or think or believe that suicide or taking their own life is the answer. Yeah. But if you look at the causes that I've talked about, they can explain a lot. Why? Because, you know, the relationship issues, the conflict in families, you know, being like our young people today, being, you know, someone joked that this generation is a generation of instant gratification. I want it and I want it now. I stand corrected, but that has been the general feeling. Could that be a contributing factor? And is there something we can do as a nation that we can train our young people to understand that maybe there are other ways that we can do things. There are other ways that we can solve our problems. Yes.
So it's as a parent taking note, you know, to find out from your young person what's going on, you know, and see how to chip in.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, as parents, especially parents of adolescents, there's a lot, there are things that we could do. Yeah, the parents, especially who still have these young people under our care, there are many things that we can do. Number one, listen to our children. And I'm not saying that we parents, we're not listening. I've been a mother to teenagers, and I know they are going through a lot. The world has become a little bit more complicated. There's so much information out there. They're dealing with so much. There's competition, there's pressure. So it calls for us parents to parent differently. It's not like the earlier times. Like I look back and my parents, the way they raised us, I cannot raise my children like that, where you were told what to do and you did it.
Without asking questions.
Without asking questions.
Yeah.
Today's young person or child, that hardly works on them. There are so many dynamics. Of course, we're not going to get into the parenting issues. But at the top of the list, all this pressure, like I said, mental health problems is at the top of the list.
Yeah.
So all this pressure is bringing mental health issues to our young people: anxiety, depression, substance use, and then the issue of gender identity that I talked about. And then we we also want sometimes to live our dreams through our children. So we push a lot of perfectionism on them. We want our children to become lawyers and engineers, the engineers that we never became. I'm not saying that's the case all the time, but that could be the case. When our children go to school, we want them to perform. No parent, every parent wants their children to perform well. Bullying is an issue.
Yes.
Low self-esteem has become an issue, and social media has not helped, because the beauty standards and the perfectionism standards have been raised to a different level, where there's so much comparison. So our young people are under so much pressure. And then we, the parents of today, we have also become quite capitalistic. We are out looking for money. Of course, given that life has become so hard, so we have to go out there to look for food to put on the table, and school fees to pay for these children. So there is less and less time that we get to spend with our children.
Yes.
So there may be lack of family support, lack of social support. We are also living in towns, urbanization, we've urbanized quite a bit. So the social fabric that was the earlier setup, where the aunties were there, the uncles were there, and when a child had a problem, they could go to an auntie here, go to an auntie there. That social fabric has also been broken. So you see, these are factors that have weakened the setup.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean that there is nothing the parents can do. There's a lot that the parents can still do. So we can be open, we can be open with our children. But first we need to be aware that this is a problem.
Yes.
We need to acknowledge that. Let's not bury our heads in the sand. It is a problem, because there are situations that are not reported. What we are seeing is probably just a tip of the iceberg. We don't have the full statistics. Why? Because suicidality or suicide, death by suicide is criminalized in this country. So then there's also stigma. So very few people will come out to talk about it.
Yeah.
So the statistics that we are seeing may not be the true picture. So what we need to understand as parents is be aware that the problem is there, and then we need to know the warning signs.
Yes.
As parents, do we know the warning signs? Are we present enough to see our children changing? Are we present enough to see our children growing and changing and make questions? So are we aware of the warning signs? Can we listen to our children even when they're not talking?
That's the most important one, and
Yes.
the difficult one.
It's difficult. It's difficult because our heads are full. We are looking for money. Yeah. We're looking for money. We come from work. We leave the house at 4 a.m. We come back maybe at 7. Do we have time for our children? Can we be intentional and just spend time and get to know the challenges that our children are going through? Okay?
Yes.
And then there's a way we can talk to our children. It's something like, you seem sad. I'm open to talking about this. Are we patient enough to do that? Because I love you and I care what happens to you. But more often than not, what will we do? Why are you moping around? What's wrong with you?
Yes, even the tone.
Yeah, and I'm talking also from experience. That's the normal parent. That's how we are likely to handle our children.
Okay.
Can we learn to talk to them and tell me more about how you're feeling? Okay?
Yes.
Rather than telling them, even as we went through teenagehood, we know it was hard, you know?
Yes.
Don't think you're the only one who has gone through teenagehood. Everybody has gone through teenagehood. So are we listening to our children to understand their emotions? You know, so we need to be intentional in the way we parent our children.
Okay.
And then when we see there's a problem, let's not shy away from seeking professional help. I applaud parents. I've seen parents fight for their children.
Yes.
And they seek medical help. They'll walk from one professional to another looking for help because they're insisting that, no, there's something going on. There's something going on. So let's fight for our children. Don't give up on your child, even if they are not talking. Tell them, I know you, you are my child. Something is not right.
Yes.
So seek professional help. Forget about what your neighbor will say. Forget about the stigma.
Yes.
You're fighting for your child's life. So seek professional help.
Okay.
Because when you take them to a professional, the professional will help them to manage their emotions, to talk about what's really going on in a safe space.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
in a safe space. They may not want to share with you that maybe they're even dating and they broke up with their girlfriend or their boyfriend.
Yes.
And it's really hurting them. But when you take them to a professional counselor, psychologist, they have that safe space because of confidentiality. So they'll be taught how to cope when they feel triggered in case they're dealing with something else. They will also be taught how to seek social support. The young person today does not know how to seek social support, which is very important.
Yes.
Yeah, seek social support from family, from friends, you know, actively. They will also be given emergency contacts that they can call in case they feel overwhelmed so that they don't go ahead and take their own life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the value of fighting for your child to get professional help.
Okay.
And then don't be afraid to say the word suicide as a parent. Ask your child directly.
How do you ask them? You know, growing up, you never had something like that.
I
Then
know,
you're told,
but-
I need to ask my child.
But there's that's the thing, that the parenting has changed and
Yes.
it has to change.
Yes.
So there's a myth that if you talk to your children about suicide or your teenager about suicide, that it will plant the idea in their head. No. Research has shown that it will actually make them feel cared for, because they'll be like, oh, somebody understands, somebody cares. So you can ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself?
Direct.
Direct. Be very direct and be very open.
Okay.
Yes.
Sawa. Before we go on a break, there is a question on our SMS line 22232.
Okay.
One of our viewers is asking, what do you advise a man living with a spouse who has borderline mental health issue?
What I would say is get them the help. Take them to see either a psychiatrist or a professional psychologist. So that, because that's the person who can help them. Yes.
A psychiatrist
Or especially with the personality disorders, I would advise, especially if it's borderline, because I cannot know. I'm sure they have not been diagnosed. They need proper assessment so that they can know exactly what the issue is, so that we don't self-diagnose. So I would advise that they are taken to a psychiatrist or a psychologist who can help to diagnose what the issue is. Yes.
Okay. Please keep your questions coming on 22232. That is 22232. You can also get us at Hope TV Kenya on Facebook and YouTube. We'll be getting to more of your questions. Please keep them coming. And remember to share this content with a friend, a family member, you know, a family or a friend that you know, a colleague, you know, who you know this content will be able to help them. Please do that right away. Do you go on a break, my director, or we go? Thank you. Let's go on a break. We'll see you shortly. Keep it right here. This is Hope TV. Look and live.
Hope TV is now available on GoTV channel 103 Zuku Channel 873, Signet Channel 817 and Star Times Channel 026. Enjoy our uplifting content and family-friendly programming anytime. Hope TV, you look and live. Every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Spotlight.
Do you feel that they are in a place where they can effect a Barack Obama moment?
When you hear the word of God and you hear Jesus is speaking.
Real talk on real issues.
You know, the Bible says faith without works is dead.
The truth of the gospel that will survive the time is not a health and wealth gospel.
When there is time to harmonize and bring one composite amendment.
With idealistic, thought-provoking guests.
So people come to be serviced, to be encouraged, to be empowered.
When the storm is over, you desire the closeness you have with God.
Hosted by Reverend Edward Furi.
Welcome back. This is Hope TV Look and Live. My name is Grace Mutiso, and the show here is Health Check, where we discuss matters regarding your health, ensuring you are healthy, not only spiritually, but also physically, mentally, emotionally. That's why we exist. And today our focus is how to prevent suicide. That's our focus of discussion. Today I'm hosting Dr. Akoth Munda. She is a clinical psychologist. Sivo.
Yes.
I forgot to say. Clinical psychologist. She's also a life coach and just helping us discuss this topic. And of course, in this hour, we're still tackling your questions. Our SMS line is 22232. That is 22232. Please send your questions early so that Doctor will be glad to answer you. So, Doctor, at this point, I'd love us to discuss. So, what are the telltale signs that one needs to watch out for that can give you a signal? This person, please be careful. They have suicidal thoughts or they are planning, to take away their life.
Yeah, the warning signs may come in different forms. You may hear it in the way somebody is speaking, the words that they like using, which of course would have changed from how they were talking before. So that some of the verbal signs, they'll talk a lot about suicide. They're expressing a desire to die. You know, they tell you, me, I just want to die. You know?
And the way we say it at times as a joke.
We say
Have you heard that?
Yes.
In an office setup or just girlfriends you meet and say, nimechoka, I just want to die.
We say it as a joke, but when somebody says it over and over, then you need to pay attention to it. We should not take it as a joke. Even that person who is saying it as a joke, there's definitely a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely a problem. They may not be to that level. Maybe there's a stressful situation they're going through at that particular moment. But it's not a word that you just throw around, you know. So verbally, you'll hear them talk about that. They may even talk about a specific suicide plan. So this is what you hear them talking about. They may tell you that they feel like they're a burden to their family, they're a burden to either their spouse or their friends or something like that. And then they may tell you, they may talk about feeling like life has pushed them to a corner, like they are trapped, like there's no way out. Remember I was talking about hopelessness, helplessness.
Yes.
So when somebody keeps, talking about that, that is a warning sign. They may talk about pain that is unbearable. They don't have physical pain, but they're talking about pain that is unbearable, or they're talking about depression, like I'm so depressed, They may also be quite self-criticizing. So any small thing, they criticize themselves. They're not happy about, they don't applaud themselves. And then you may hear them say things like, I regret ever being born. So those are telltale signs, those are warning signs, especially if they go on, and you hear somebody, maybe in a span of 1 month, they're still talking like that, until you're like, why do you talk like that? Why do you say you're regretting having been born or regretting being alive? So these are things you may hear them talking about. So we need to pay attention to what people are saying around us. And especially we're talking about mothers or parents of young adults and adolescents, because they say that suicide between 14, 15 to 25, that's the concentration of majority of the suicide cases. So if you're a parent of a young adult or a teenager, you need to pay attention to what your teenager is saying. So we have those verbal signs. Then we also have behavioral signs. Now, things that you will see them doing, or they will tell you that they are doing.
Yes.
So you may see them, you may see a change in their personality. Maybe someone who used to be bubbly is suddenly so dull and quiet, withdrawn. They don't like going where people are. They may tell you, like, I don't sleep anymore. I go to bed and I can't fall asleep, or I fall asleep so late. So it's changes in their sleeping patterns, eating patterns. They may gain weight, or they may lose weight. Okay, and then they may also start engaging in self-harm. This is very common with adolescents.
What do you mean by self-harm?
Self-harm is whereby somebody inflicts harm on themselves, and they use different tools. They can use razor blades, they can use cigarettes to burn themselves. Some even use their own nails, some use needles to prick themselves. So just inflicting pain on themselves. So that's like a cry for help, and it's normally one of the telltale signs. So it's a behavioral symptom. They may even go ahead and write suicide notes. They haven't gone to the point where they're taking their own life, but they're already writing their suicide note. They may reach out to loved ones. They might start saying goodbye and telling you, like this young man I'm telling you about, he said that he was going on a long journey.
That's what he was telling the family?
Yeah, he told, I think, the brother that he's going on a long journey and he may not come back anytime soon. Yeah, so you may hear those kind of languages. They withdraw, they stop liking the things that they used to like. Then they're preoccupied with death and dying. They may start engaging in risky behavior. Things like driving recklessly, abusing substances, and things like that. They may even start to give their things away.
And it's not doing it out of free will, generosity?
No. They may start giving their things away and even write a will and tell you, I'll leave for you my car. What do you mean you leave for me your car? I'll leave for you my car. Things like that. Or they may bring you like their best, like if you're working in an office setup, they may bring you their best outfits, like maybe even 5 of their best outfits if you're the same size. Like, why are you doing this? So those are behaviors that you need to watch out for. If it's your young teenager or young adult in the house, watch out. What are they doing? What behavior are they engaging in? They may buy the tools or whatever it is they're planning to use to take their life away, whether it's a gun or a knife or a rope or whatever. You may find they've bought it. And it's sad, it's heartbreaking even as I'm talking about this. Then most of the time you'll see that they're very anxious most of the time. So they're not calm, they're sitting down and you may see them shaking their leg or wringing their hand. They're just agitated. So those are behavior. Mood-wise, of course, we're talking about depression, we're talking about panic attacks, we're talking about they may experience psychotic symptoms, hallucinations, delusions. They may be angry, they may be agitated, they may want to revenge, feel humiliated, they may feel lonely, they may have extreme mood swings. In the morning they are okay, in the afternoon they are very angry or sad, and then they may also feel like a burden, and they may tell you that they are feeling a lot of pain. So those are just some of the telltale signs. And then sometimes when they have decided, they may change and become okay, even for a few days, until you imagine this person has become okay. You may even go partying with them. And they are okay and they are calm and they've gone back to their old self. Then soon after that, you hear that they have taken their life. And this is normally something that leaves people perturbed we were just with them over the weekend and, and they were very happy. What happened? You know, so they leave you not understanding what may happen. So those are some of the telltale signs that people can look out for. So we need to pay attention.
Yeah.
We need to pay attention and we need to take it seriously. If you hear somebody talking about taking their lives, talking about, I wish the earth could just open up and swallow me. I wish I was never born. I regret this. You know, pay attention. Help that person to either see a professional or sit down with them and listen and ask, what's going on? I heard you say this and that's a very serious statement. Is there a problem? Yeah, I'm here to listen. Talk to me.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are some of the telltale signs that we can all watch out for in our environment, whichever environment we are in, either with our friends, in the workplace, or at home with our families.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were talking about family, friends, at home. What about in school or in campus, you know, where parents are not there and you've sent your child to school, then the next thing you hear, your child is normal. So how can the teachers be on the lookout, you know, for a student who really needs help, so as not to, take away their life?
It's the same things. It's more or less the same thing. And you see that calls for the teachers to pay the same attention that I'm talking about. But I guess it calls for a special teacher, or it calls for training for teachers to pay attention to the symptoms. Because remember, you're dealing with a huge class. How are you going to pay attention to that withdrawn child at the corner who is always either sleeping on the desk? I was watching a TEDx talk about a teacher who, one of the children took their lives. And that's what she was calling for. Can teachers pay a little extra attention? So it's just the attention that we are calling for, and the awareness that this is a real problem and it's not a joke. So if you see a child, even their grades are dropping, or a child who is even struggling in class, be a friend to that child and find out what's really going on. I know that's asking for a lot, especially maybe when we look at our public school system where there's 60-something, 60, 40, 50 students in a class, and you're teaching so many classes. That's probably not practical. So we probably need to come up with other measures that takes care of the mental health of the students, sensitizing them and teaching them skills that can enable them to manage their emotions better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's go to another thing that maybe could be the reason why we don't hear so much talk, you know, and training about suicide. Stigma.
Yes.
Talk about that.
Oh, that is actually one of the reasons why people, even our statistics, we are not sure. I don't think we have, and I think even in the literature that I've read, we don't have the correct statistics because of stigma. The society will judge you. And even if we go back to the traditional setup, there was taboo around someone taking their own life. There were, like in my community, there were rules and regulations as to what should happen. Sometimes people even abandoned a home or a house where somebody took their life. So the stigma has been there all along. Then now, it's been associated with so many things. As a parent, imagine when you lose your child through suicide. People judge you. People judge you, and the society judges you, and they start, you know the way I'm saying that we need to pay attention?
Yes.
Yeah, they start saying, maybe you didn't pay attention. Not necessarily. Not the suicide is very complicated. Suicide is so complicated. Maybe you paid all the attention that you could as a parent, and you're such a loving and warm parent. But this child was probably dealing with something that was so huge, and they didn't know how to handle it. So because of that, people don't seek help. Stigma stands in the way of help-seeking behaviors. And it stops people who need help from going for help. So we need to educate ourselves and look at that person who is struggling with suicidal ideation and thoughts as somebody who needs support and not judgment. person is unwell. That person is not thinking rationally. So the last thing they need is your judgment. Because if I know you're going to judge me, I'm not going to talk to you.
True.
I'm not going to tell you that I'm struggling with these thoughts.
True.
But you see, because of lack of knowledge, even we parents, when our child comes to us and they tell us that I'm struggling with this and this, we tell them, oh, get over it. So as a society, as a nation, we need to work on the stigma. And one of the ways we can do that is through the awareness and helping people to understand that the person who is struggling with suicidal thoughts is struggling with a lot with mental illness. They are not well. They are not rational. You know, it's not just something they can snap out of. They need support and not judgment.
Yeah.
And it's just an illness like any other. Nobody stigmatizes somebody with malaria.
No.
When you have malaria, when your child has malaria, don't you rush them to the hospital? You see? So we need awareness so that people can understand that the person struggling with suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation needs our support and not our judgment.
Okay.
Yes.
And at that, now we've discovered person A has suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
When you discover that, okay, it depends on where you are. It depends on the environment. Let me give a scenario at the office.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
You realize somebody opens up to you and tells you that, I've been actually thinking about this. Now, what you need to do, one is be there for that person. Listen to them if they want to talk. Do not judge them. Be kind to them. Ask them, how can I help? Get them to the nearest hospital. Get them to the nearest hospital. Take them to see a doctor. That is a person who should not even go at home alone. They should not go home. They should go to see a doctor. The very least you can do for them is get them to a doctor, a general practitioner who will then refer them to either see a psychiatrist. Mostly they'll start with a psychiatrist because suicidality is now at a different level.
Yes.
Yeah. So they'll be referred to see a psychiatrist who will now manage the imbalance that they're struggling with, and they come down. Then from there, they can be referred to a psychologist to help them, teach them the coping skills that they need to manage the problems that they're facing. Yeah, so don't leave them alone. If you're not somewhere where you can take them to the hospital, call. We have numbers that you can call. There are numbers that you can call, the emergency numbers that you can call. So that they get the help that need. We have online counseling. You talk to a professional so that they're not left alone.
Yes.
Yeah, but you don't leave them alone. If you're in a home, let's say it's a child, it's your child, your daughter, your son, ensure that the place is safe. Remove all the things that they may use to, to take their life, to harm themselves, and don't leave them alone. Yeah, so those are just some of the quick things that you can do to help to support the person who has opened up to you that they have these thoughts to take their life. Yeah.
Okay. Let's sample a few questions. Please keep them coming on 22232 or at Hope TV Kenya. This viewer writes and says, what causes suicidal thoughts? What causes suicidal thoughts?
I will take them back to the causes that we talked about. Yes. Those causes, the list that I read, starting with the mental health problems, things like bullying, discrimination, racism, abuse, trauma, losses in our lives, and when they overwhelm you, because people go through these problems, but not everybody develops suicidal thoughts. So when you feel like your problems or whatever it is you're going through has overwhelmed you, and you feel like there's no way out, you feel like there is no solution, such that you now imagine, maybe if I checked out, then my problems would end. Yes. But it's just that same list of problems. Majority of our problems, of the suicidal feelings, will be caused by that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mmoja hapa anauliza, nini inaendelea kwa watoto wadogo wa shule kujitoa uhai? I think, just translating to what is happening to school-going children taking away their own lives. What's going on
Yeah.
in schools,
Yeah.
primary, high school, campus?
Yeah, I think we already even addressed that earlier on when we were saying the young generation today are facing a lot of challenges. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure from we, the parents, pressure from the society to be perfect, to look a certain way. There are so many other issues that are infiltrating. Social media is not giving them peace. There's comparison. So there are so many factors in addition which cause them now to develop certain probably mental illnesses like anxiety, depression, or it's just the pressure that becomes too much and they look at themselves like someone struggling with school.
Yes.
Maybe their performance, maybe they are a C student. Like you remember that child who was being caned that they didn't get 400 marks. I don't know if you remember that case, that young boy who was being caned that they didn't. So, those kind of things. The teachers are putting pressure that they want the children to get certain marks. Yet, we all have different levels of performance.
Yes.
We have C students, we have B students, we have A students, we even have D students. So it's upon us as a society to understand the children that we have. So we need to check, is it our education system? Is the syllabus too heavy? Or if not, is this child struggling? Is this child performing at this level, that's their best, and yet we are still putting too much pressure?
Okay.
What else is this child interacting with? What's going on in this child's life? So we probably need a lot of research to find out what's really going on. But those are some of the possible reasons. Generally, our young people, it could just be a lot of pressure going on around them that is not managed. And then it could also be that the people around them are overwhelmed, so they don't pay attention to their needs, to the needs of this particular child.
Yes.
So the child has a problem, but they have no one to tell their problem. They have no one to confide in who will listen to them. So maybe they try and they are rebuffed. They're told, don't talk about that. Why are you talking about that? You go back to class. We don't want to hear about that,
Yes.
Yeah, so you see, we still need a lot of work on the ground so that we can have a safe space where our children can share their problems and they feel heard and they feel supported, and then we give them the help they need before they get to that level.
Okay.
But I'm sure if you look into each of those cases,
Yes.
if we were to dig a little bit back, we would find this particular child was struggling with something specific. They tried looking for a solution and they couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's so touching just to know that you need to be sensitive, have an extra eye, an extra ear, and don't take things casually. Just go an extra mile. You could save a life.
Yeah.
As we wrap up the program, Dr. Akoth, can you imagine? I wanted to ask, we've talked about suicide prevention and what you need to do, the symptoms. There is a special category of people who have lost their loved ones, and they have remained behind and they are struggling with the long-lasting effects of how could she take their own life. What's your word of encouragement and advice to them? How do they move forward from here?
That's a hard one. That's a really, really hard one. I know parents like that. Yeah. I know parents like that, and my heart goes out to them. There is, especially if you lose your child to suicide, I can only imagine. Now, I want to tell them it's okay to feel the way they are feeling. I can only imagine how difficult it is. Someone who's not been in their shoes cannot know what that parent is going through. The guilt, the self-blame, I am pretty sure they've probably asked themselves a million times, is there something I could have done to stop this? So the confusion, the anger, the pain, the sadness, that's just to mention just a few of the feelings and the emotions that they have to deal with. But I just want to tell them that it's okay to feel what they're feeling. That I want to encourage them to allow themselves to grieve. and let no one define for them how they are grieving. They should not allow anyone to decide for them, not the society, not their spouse, not their other children. Let them grieve in the way they want to grieve.
Yeah.
But I also want to encourage them, because this is difficult, they need to seek professional help. They need support. They need a safe space where they can go and talk about these feelings. Because, remember we talked about stigma.
Yes.
This is not a parent who can go to the women group, the chama, and tell them that this is how I'm feeling.
No.
No. It's a no-go zone, as in nobody talks about it. Because we are all afraid of what we might trigger in that parent. So it's a very difficult topic to talk about. So I want to encourage that parent who is struggling, seek professional help. Will give you a safe space, a safe space to discuss all that.
Yeah.
Talk about your experience when you're ready. Focus on the positive memories of your loved ones. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. We have to wrap it up right there. Can you imagine?
Oh.
And as we do that, Dr. in just a second, what about a caregiver? Maybe you discovered a loved one wanted to do it, then by God's grace, you're able to capture. So you're giving care to a loved one who has a mental issue. How can they take care of themselves? A tip or two in some few seconds.
Don't blame yourself. Get them the professional help that they need. And go with them, because even you, it has affected you.
Yes.
Yeah, so as they're seeking professional help, seek professional help on how you can support them better, so that you walk the journey together and reassure them that you're there for them and you'll walk the journey with them, and that it does not get better tomorrow. It takes a long time, and it's a journey that you will walk together with them until they get to a good place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Akoth. Press killer. Wow, what a great topic.
Yeah.
And I believe we are more educated, you're more informed on how we can contribute positively towards suicide prevention. Your handles online, in case somebody wants to get in touch with you. Where do you find you online?
Facebook, Preskila Ocheng. Instagram, Prisochi.
Okay.
My Twitter is a bit quiet, but it's also at Prisochi, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Ribi. God bless you. Your parting shot before we let you go.
Mental illness is just an illness like any other. People who are struggling with suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideation are people who need our support and not judgment and not stigma. So let's stop the stigma and let's support and let's get them the help that they need. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us today as we've been talking about suicide prevention. And you know what? I'd want to echo the words that Dr. Akoth has stated. Stop the stigma and do something. Do something towards preserving that life of that just one person that you know. And be keen, be observant, ask questions, and be present. My name is Grace Mutis. I want to wish you a blessed night. Thank you so much for joining us on Health Check. God willing, we do this again next week on Tuesday, same time, same station. And of course, fresh anointing as the Lord helps us to minister to you. Have a blessed night, but keep it Hope TV, Look and Live. News Watch is up next, but before that, I believe it's Jericho. Bye-bye for now.